everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. For come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to a really big, quote-unquote, weekly recap, because I was on a complete vacation from the show and just about all responsibilities in my life, from the Guaranteed Rate Bowl preview to about yesterday as of recording this. And it appears that will be extended due to, you didn't see it, but I just looked outside and my window is half covered in snow, and Connor is the same story. So, but it's going to be a big, quote unquote, weekly recap, because we have, 7 portal commits to cover, and then men and women's Catsketball.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the interim between the last weekly recap that we had.
Yeah. But before we get into the news, since the supporters link is dead, rest in peace to the supporters link, all we have to do is say, thank you, Grandma.
Thank you, Grandma.
But we're going to thank Grandma every episode in perpetuity, because Grandma is cool.
I like Grandma.
I also like Grandma. We will not be saying which one of our grandparents it is, but we start off with the football portal recruiting. And I remember it was a little slow. The last one that we covered was Drunt Tibbs, I believe, from Purdue. So we have a lot to cover, but the one right after Tibbs honestly might be up there with some of my favorites from this portal commitment class, and that is the safety coming up from the University of West Georgia, and that is Marquavius Moss, who is a safety that was pretty highly sought after in the portal coming out of West Georgia. Had offers from, of course, K-State, Nebraska, Georgia Tech, Houston, Virginia, among other teams. And, this is a really important pickup, not only because the safety room sort of struggled this year, but because I don't think that this is me coping and saying, anybody that we could have got would be better. I genuinely believe that Marquavius Moss is a legitimate game changer at safety. And my basic evaluation of him, before Connor, you can give your general thoughts, is, he's just a heat-seeking missile. He reminds me a lot of Josh Hayes in that regard.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty similar comp. That's pretty much the exact same comp I was going to make. And I think that we've generally really liked having those type of safeties and defensive backs generally, particularly for run defense. I think that's what we were hoping for from Jordan Riley, but we just didn't quite get. And but otherwise, we've really hit on those guys in one way or another. Reggie Stubblefield, even though he didn't exactly play safety, he was a nickel outside linebacker sort of deal. He played the Reggie position, and
yeah, he played sauce boss. That was his role.
Yeah, Russ Yeast, again, a little different position, but he was so effective. And then Josh Hayes, similar. Drake Cheatham kind of dabbled in that a little bit, but we do really like having safeties that fly downhill in the run defense, which you kind of have to have in the 3-3-5. There's a lot more pressure put on your safeties to be really good in run support. Marquavius Moss, I think, is going to be a really great addition for that as well. And he's coming up from a lower level, Division II, I think. But he brings some decent size. He's listed at 6'2", 185. And this past year had 36 tackles. He forced a fumble. He had a few pass deflections. And he also was used as a returner a little bit. So I don't know if that's something he'll do here. I'd imagine probably not. But he was a very effective safety at a lower level, and he's somebody that the staff was after for really one of their top choices, I think, in the defensive backfield. And yeah, he had some offers from other teams that definitely, I think, are indicative of kind of talent ID, staffs that are good at talent ID, with Houston particularly, I think, being one where if they're offering a defensive guy then generally I think pretty highly of that prospect. Marquavius Moss, he was a Houston offer. I think he might have visited as well. But yeah, this is a great ad for K-State, and he's one of the higher rated ads as well, even though it seems like On3's kind of been a little bit more conservative on how often they're giving out 4 stars in this portal class compared to the past. In the past, they've really just kind of handed them out.
If you played any snaps at a P4 or you were sought after as an FCS or D2 guy, you got the free 4 star.
Yeah, they've seemed to kind of pull back on that a little bit this year, which there's not a right or wrong way to do it, but Moss still finds himself on the very edge of being a 4-star prospect.
Which I think that's especially impressive given that he is a D2 transfer up. That's really hard to do, especially with how a lot of rankings now. I mean, we saw it with John Pastore in the high school ranks a few years ago, where he was like a middling 3-star, but his tape, if you put him anywhere but where he lived in Colorado with that level of competition, that was like 4-star tape. And it might be the same with JoJo Scott in this same class. He deserves that 4th star. He's not going to get it, but he deserves that 4th star. And to me, it's just really impressive that, and I think it's indicative of the talent that Marquavius Moss got. Was very close to getting that 4th star, hopping up so much from the D2 level at safety. And I think he could play either jack or free safety, though a lot of those roles, depending on how coverage rotations go, they can do the same thing. Weirdly enough, the strong safety is kind of the one with the most unique skill set in Klanderman's defense. Every safety can obviously do a little bit of everything, but jack and free safety are the most interchangeable, and you can see that on the field, just how they sort of rotate. But I really, really like the Moss pickup for a defensive backfield that this previous year struggled and is going to be missing Marquise Siegel after he declared for the draft out of eligibility. And everything else behind that is sort of unproven, even if we were high on guys like Daniel Cobbs, for example. Wesley Fair had one really, really good play against Cincinnati. Colby McAllister has been solid. VJ, of course, is coming back, but we still needed the more depth we have in the safety room, the better.
Yeah, particularly with how many safeties are playing. It's always good to have extra guys in to rotate. Because I think in our perfect world, or Joe Klanderman's perfect world, he's probably got probably 6 or 7 guys that he's comfortable having on the field for meaningful snaps. And I think we're pretty quickly approaching that point if we haven't already hit it. But yeah, that's a solid ad with Marquavius Moss.
Yeah, we're probably there with a commitment we'll talk about later. But the next commitment on the list is the Ohio State linebacker Gabe Powers, who is sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum of Marquavius Moss, where Moss is D2 transfer up, really, really highly sought after despite the level of competition. And I don't want to say that Gabe Powers is only getting interest because he's an Ohio State transfer, because I don't think that's true. I do think that he is a very talented player, and he probably will slot in. I mean, just by virtue of how our linebacker room looks right now, he's probably already on the 2 line by virtue of existing. But I like this pickup because it is sort of one of those prospective pickups. He did play a little bit of true linebacker at Ohio State. I believe he recorded an interception, but he made a lot of his money on special teams, which, great. Special team. I say that sounded like sarcasm. I love special teams guys, because that's how you win in the margins. But what do you have about Gabe Powers, Connor?
Yeah, he did have an interception this year. It was a pick 6 in their season opening win against Akron. But otherwise, he's a former 4-star recruit, and I think was somebody that was pretty highly thought of in the Ohio State program. but it's just kind of perpetually been stuck behind just incredibly talented players, which is not a unheard of story for an Ohio State athlete. He had, I think, some other interests. Even at the Big Ten level, he still had some other interests. I think Wisconsin was interested, maybe Minnesota. I might be getting my wires crossed there, but particularly because we've had so many
commitments in the meantime.
But Powers did have other power conference interest, and has not had a ton of production at Ohio State, but regardless is still a really intriguing prospect as a really great athlete who also has some really good size as well. On his ESPN profile, he's listed at 6'4", 242 pounds. So he definitely brings some much needed size to the K-State linebacker room. And additionally, I think he'll have 2 years to play as far as I know. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this ad of Gabe Powers because we definitely need some shoring up in the linebacker room because it seems like every year we always end up having injury problems in the linebacker room. The injury bug strikes in that room pretty often, and it's the last several seasons, it seemed like by the end of the year, we're really just barely holding things together. And I guess another thing he has working against him is that we're kind of yet to have a non-junior college linebacker transfer actually be good.
Yeah, because we've had, 2 that retired?
Yeah, the same class.
In the same class. Oh, that's right.
Sean Robinson and Will Honus. They both just walked away from football. And Eric Munoz, who I think
recorded one tackle.
Yeah, he got a tackle and got an offsides on a kickoff, I think, once. And
yep.
That was all we got from him. Trying to think about
Alec Marenko, who transferred out again.
Yeah, Marenko. I think
that was just tough luck.
Yeah, the most notable thing he did at K-State was get into a car accident on his way to practice. And I think I'm probably forgetting some, but I think that just goes to show the quality of linebacker transfers we've gotten. Rex Van Wy is the exception, but he's a JUCO guy, so he's a little bit of a different transfer. But Gabe Powers, hopefully he's able to break the mold and become the first notable K-State linebacker transfer.
Yeah, and I think we sort of took the gamble on him despite lack of production because he's an athlete who in high school had just a penchant for getting tackles. So in some ways we may slot him into that will position to just kind of take the Austin Moore role of fly around the field, get tackles. I think Gabe Powers is a better athlete than Austin Moore, but I don't think that he will outwork Austin Moore, mostly because I have heard the stories of what Austin Moore is capable of. And I don't think that any other person outside of Jack Fabris maybe is capable of that. But I like the Gabe Powers pickup, even if I do have a bit of hesitancy due to lack of power for even really getting on the field. But again, special teamer, good athlete out of high school, good tackler out of high school. That's a guy that you'll take a gamble on, especially when you're so thin in the linebacking room.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. But yeah, he was I'm looking at his high school recruiting profile now. And he was on 24/7, the 113th ranked player nationally. Was a consensus 4-star, looked like, and he even got a custom evaluation. And yeah, he was a wingback in his high school's offense as well. So they ran wing T. So I would not want to be dealing with a 2-way running back linebacker at the high school level.
Good.
He's
That's what Romaine was, wasn't he?
What's that?
Romaine was a 2-way as well, right?
Probably. We've had some. I think we've actually had a few two-way linebackers. Asa Newsom was one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really good as an offensive player. Jordan Perry, he came in as a safety but moved to Sam linebacker, and he was a two-way guy as well. He was a quarterback, like a single wing, I think.
Wesley Fair was a quarterback and safety.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've had a few two-way players, and I am excited for the Gabe Powers pickup, even if it is at most just for depth, because good God, we need the depth.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the next portal commit is actually someone that we've pursued. I think the Kleiman staff has pursued 3 times at this point. It's a wide receiver that Kleiman staff has gone after 3 different times, once in high school, once in the portal. 3rd time was the charm for Jaron Bradley. If that name sounds familiar, it should, not only because we pursued him so many times, but because he is a former Texas Tech standout. And it seems that up to this point that K-State has sort of prioritized getting size in the portal, because Tibbs was 6'4", Jaron Bradley is 6'5", and although he didn't have a lot of production at Boston College, that's just kind of the BC offense, and also he was injured. He was much, much better at Texas Tech as both kind of just your deep go and get it guy. And that's a skill set that I think K-State has been waiting on for a while. And it's sort of the perfect complement to a Jace Brown, who's probably going to be your more traditional wide receiver too. I think Tibbs and Bradley are probably going to be fighting for that X receiver snap. I would say that Bradley probably ends up winning that, but Tibbs ends up taking a lot of snaps at other wide receiver positions. But despite me forgetting that this pickup happened because, again, it had been so long, I saw it on the commitment list, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. We have contested catch receivers now. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the pickup as well. He's someone I really wanted last year, and he kind of fell under the radar this year because, he, like you said, he was injured. He did have a game-winning touchdown reception for Boston College this year in their game against Western Kentucky. But really outside of the month of September, he didn't do a lot, just battling injuries. But he was hyper productive at Texas Tech, particularly in 2022. He had 51 catches, 744 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He has a career 1,300-yard receiver. So he's got proven Power 4 production. So you're always going to be pretty happy to pick up a guy with a known quantity. Pretty much. K-State's played against him as well. I'm pretty sure he mossed Jacob Parrish in 2023 when he was at Texas Tech.
I think that was him. It was either him or it must have been him, because Miles Price didn't hop over Jacob Parrish. But.
But Bradley, he good pickup. One of the articles about him says that K-State was going up against, it sounds like it was Oklahoma, that really wanted him as well. But that whole offensive situation, there's been it's been an adventure for the Sooners down there. This is, even though he had a pretty minimal production this year, he brings another contested catch guy to throw at when we get into the red zone, and can probably offer a bit more than that as well. But I'm pretty happy with this pickup, especially because it's nice to finally get him.
Yeah, it took us a couple tries, but I like the pickup just because it is that proven production, and it's something that it's it's exactly what you said. It is a known commodity. And that's something that's pretty rare to get in the transfer portal, because if it's a known commodity, it's because A, you're a known commodity because you're bad, or you're a known commodity because you're really, really good, and then everyone is just throwing an ungodly amount of money at you.
Yeah. But K-State has an unusual level of familiarity with him because not only have they faced him multiple times since he's been at Texas Tech, but he was recruited by Matt Wells, and Matt Wells is the co-offensive coordinator. And he was recruited through the portal last year at K-State. So, I mean, the familiarity there with K-State and the staff with Jaron Bradley is unusually high for someone that has not previously been enrolled at K-State. So, so I think the staff can be pretty confident in their assessment on Bradley.
Yeah. But that leads us to the next. We're about halfway done. That leads us to the next portal commit, who is a big one in the literal sense, because it is Amos Talalele, an interior offensive lineman transfer from USC. And I, for one, am surprised that K-State was able to yank a non-JUCO Polynesian player from either USC, Notre Dame, or any of the Pacific Northwest schools, because they kind of run a monopoly on and BYU, I guess, but they kind of run a monopoly on the high school market for Polynesian players. But I mean, if you want to treat yourself to some interesting film, try to find the Amos Talalele high school film and just watch him bury people. And that's kind of his skill set as a guard. And I'm very excited for that skill set as a guard.
Yeah, he's the dictionary definition of a mauler guard. And it's, I think, at least in my estimation, I think what this makes abundantly clear is that the staff, particularly Connor Riley, is going to absolutely double down on running inside zone, but is now saying maybe we should get the personnel to do that more effectively, particularly when the other team may see it coming. And Amos Talalele is someone that I think can get downhill pretty easily by virtue of a pretty basic physics, because he's just going to be a lot bigger than most people. And so I'm looking forward to seeing him battle for a potential starting spot. And even if he doesn't start, which may be kind of difficult because there's going to be a lot of talent to sort through on this offensive line, but he's probably somebody that could still find some time, maybe kind of rotating in at guard for specific situations. But also I could see him being the type of guy that maybe in a jumbo package you throw in a fullback, because K-State hasn't really done that a ton. They did it a little bit with Andrew Langang against Baylor back in 22. That, and also bringing him in as a sixth O lineman. But that, I mean, just throw him in as a bowling ball and those sorts of situations. And but regardless, as a run blocker, I think we know what we're getting: a ferocious and effective run blocker. But as a pass blocker, probably needs development. But he was, I think, a redshirt freshman this year, or true freshman.
Yeah. He was a red shirt freshman, I believe.
So he's still a very young player. So tons of room to grow, literally and figuratively. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Connor Riley's able to do with him, because most of the time in the past, Connor Riley, when he goes out and gets prospects for the offensive line, it's been guys that need a lot of work in terms of their body composition. Like, they need to put on weight. Talalele does not need to put on weight. He's like 340 pounds. So like that is not a concern for him. So I'm curious to see how we manage that. But I'm pretty happy with this ad.
The only thing that I sort of give first off, when's the last time that have we in the Kleiman era had a guard that was above 300 pounds? Revo?
Yeah, Revis was, but he was a holdover from Snyder, but he still was.
Yeah.
And BB, his senior year,
Okay.
when he shifted inside. And probably I'd assume that there have been others that have like been shading over 300, but Revis is he is the big one, and BB as well.
But the only thing that you said that I don't fully agree with is I think that Amos Talalele probably does start next year. The only way that happens is if a few dominoes fall. Subscribe to KSO. There's our episode plug. With how things go in the guard room for K-State with some players returning, I really struggle to find a world where Talalele isn't one of the starting guards. The only world where I can see that happening is if the dominoes fall in a certain way. And also, I think Shunky is probably going to end up surprising people. I think people forget Shunky exists. I will never forget Shunky exists. Because even though the walk-on system's not going to exist anymore, he was a walk-on. Not kind of, but...
Yeah, he was a walk-on asterisk. But no, I am with you. I do not forget and will never forget that Navarro Shunky does exist. And he is definitely going to be on kind of inside track, I think, for getting a starting spot. But no, yeah, there's going to be a lot of traffic in the interior of the offensive line, other than Sam Hecht, I guess. I think he's got center pretty well wrapped up at this point. I think Rockers, I think, is the next man up there. And I think that's probably the only room where we really do have kind of a clear line of succession as center. But everywhere else, I think you can make plenty of arguments for multiple people. But no, I'm regardless still really happy with this ad to get a Power 4 conference guy, a young player that was competing for a starting spot this year at USC and was good enough still to get some playing time.
Yeah, and I'm going to be fascinated to just sort of watch how the offensive line room develops in the offseason, because I think the only two spots that you can write down in Sharpie right now is center with Sam Hecht and then probably Andrew Langang at right tackle. If John Pastore can stop being hurt, and it's not like the same thing over and over again. It's a bunch of different random injuries that he can't really do anything about. If Pastore can stay healthy, he's probably penciled in at left tackle. But he has to stay healthy. I think every other position is up for grabs.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But the next commitment is on the defensive side of the ball, and it's actually someone that K-State is familiar with because we've seen him. And that is the Arizona Wildcats transfer, and that is Gunnar Maldonado. So we managed to pull another Wildcat from a Wildcats program, and he is a former captain from the Arizona Wildcat squad. He was from Arizona by way of Northwestern, I believe.
Yeah,
that's thank you. I mean, take everything that we said about Marquavius Moss and just sort of paste it here, except for with proven Power 4 production, plus leadership. And, I mean, he's been around the block in D1. And this is another one where he was pretty highly up there on my favorite commits from this class. I think all of my favorites from this class are actually on the defensive side of the ball, and they're all defensive backs. But Gunnar Maldonado, it depends on how I think about it. We still have one more later that I think he's wrestling for that number one spot with. He might be my favorite of the entire portal cycle so far.
Yeah, but for now we can talk about Maldonado. He's a now 3-time Wildcat, being at Northwestern, Arizona, and now K-State. But a phenomenally talented player who really, I think, had an inside track of being an all Big 12 player this past season before getting injured. He was healthy enough to play against K-State, but I think he was shut down after early October, I think. But he has been incredibly productive throughout his career. 173 total tackles over his career. He's forced 6 fumbles. He has 4 interceptions. I'm pretty sure he had a fumble return touchdown in the Alamo Bowl victory over Oklahoma.
You'd be correct. He did.
Yeah, and was a defensive MVP in that game because I think he had a pick as well. But he's I think he's a classic captain of the defense safety. If you had to put him into like an archetype, I think he's perfect for this K-State secondary, because I think we love to have a safety that we can count on to get guys in the right spot and communicate. And I feel extremely comfortable with a guy this experienced and this talented, kind of leading the defense from the backfield, like Gunnar Maldonado. There's not much I can really say without just kind of echoing superlatives, so I'll let you talk a little bit about him. But I'm super happy with this ad.
Yeah. Perhaps one of my favorite superlatives that I saw, that I actually had to take a minute to think about on whether or not I agreed with it. Actually, it comes from another KSO guy, but it's not the one that we often cite in Drew Galloway. It's actually Derek Young, who said that Gunnar Maldonado reminds him a lot of Kobe Savage. And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I kind of found myself agreeing with it. And that's because Kobe and Gunnar Maldonado had very, very similar stat lines, I suppose to say, when they were healthy. Because Gunnar Maldonado, when he was healthy at Arizona, he was missing just a hair above 10% of his tackles, which for a defensive back, I'd say like 20% of missed tackle rate is pretty good. Getting down to like the 10s area is you're getting there as like your amazing run support safety. And he also had multiple interceptions in the year that he was healthy, and he was the captain, the communicator on the back end of the defense. And good God, if there's one thing that we needed, that we were missing most from this previous season in the safety room, it was that communication. Because if there was, I don't remember a single season where there were more blown assignments in the defensive backfield than this one season. And it wasn't just one player either. I know that everyone wants to dogpile on Keenan Garber because I keep thinking about the Tulane. They're running blitz 0 and he's dropping into a deep third. And everyone wants to dogpile on Garber. No one is free of blame for missed assignments. And I think that comes down to just communication. And that's one thing that Gunnar Maldonado, even outside of his play, which is really good, he plays at a really high level. I think that's something that is really important that he's going to bring to the defensive backfield.
Yeah. Klanderman multiple times this season, particularly early, made a point of saying that communication wasn't the problem in the secondary. And at first I was like, okay, it must be something else. But after like 2 or 3 times, I just did not believe him.
No, I think he's lying.
He was lying. I think he was lying. And, but Maldonado, I'm really optimistic, should be a really helpful presence for the K-State secondary. And this was a guy that I think made one other visit, and it was Indiana, which K-State's kind of gone head-to-head with Indiana a lot this portal cycle, which I think says a lot about similarities between the staffs in terms of kind of being talent ID guys, which you could definitely say Indiana did a very good job with this year with making the CFP. But all in all, extremely happy with this pickup.
The next commitment from K-State is actually one that happened. There were 2 that happened yesterday. One got a lot more hype than the other. I'm just going to leave it at that and not say why. But the first of which was Gabe Ervin, the running back from Nebraska. And if you're like me, your first thought was, wait a minute, why are we picking up a running back? Because we already have Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson, who both put on a show up against Rutgers. The simple answer is Gabe Ervin is a body type that we didn't have on the roster. He's 6'1", 220 pounds. and we needed a big power back. That's what Gabe Ervin is going to do. He's the power back.
Yeah, it really is that simple with Gabe Ervin. It's not something to like overthink or I think there's like some sort of like subtle messaging going on about what we think about the other guys in the room. That's not the case. We needed a power back, and I think that was kind of clear based off of the other guys that we were chasing at running back. They were all just like LeGarrette Blount clones, and Braylon Russell from Arkansas, who entered and withdrew from the portal, I think 2 times each, and I'm thinking Kewan Lacey, I think is his name, from Louisville, which I don't know what happened with him, but Gabe Ervin kind of just completely flew under the radar, and then there was just a random tweet from like some On3 guy. It's like, yeah, he's signed with K-State. So, oh, okay, great. But no, he actually, for a program that's really not had a lot of talent in the running back room the last probably 5 or 6 years in Nebraska, Gabe Ervin has actually been one of the few bright spots coming out of camp, but has kind of been perpetually injured up until I think this year. And even then this year, he didn't really do a lot. But he's been a consistent presence throughout his time at Nebraska. He's got 5 touchdowns on the ground. And he has been a guy that's been starter at times as well. So the talent is there, and he was a highly regarded prospect out of high school. But I'm hoping that maybe having him as a short yardage / change of pace back, I think might be the perfect role for him.
Yeah, and that's the story on Ervin. That's all I got.
Yeah, I don't have anything else either. So,
but the last one that we're going to cover for this episode, at least until we get more commitments, because I do feel that more of them are coming. It is inevitable either in the next few weeks or after the spring window. And that is Amarian Fortenberry, who, for those who know, is a fascinating story that I will not be telling here, but just know it's been a fascinating recruitment for Fortenberry. He's a true freshman, as in he will be a true sophomore next year, from the University of South Alabama. And I mean, remember how I was saying that Gunnar Maldonado might be my favorite? This is the guy that's fighting for the number 1 spot with Gunnar Maldonado, which is Fortenberry. 5'11", 180-ish pounds. So he has not necessarily prototype size. Prototype size for an outside corner is like 6'1", 6'2". But, I mean, he just knows how to use that 5'11". And if you look at PFF grades, I take defensive PFF grades. I think this is something that I thought about a little bit more. Defensive PFF grades are kind of take it or leave it, especially on coverage because they don't have the defensive call. But Fortenberry has been a really, really good corner as a true freshman. And it's not like he didn't play anybody because, yes, he did play at South Alabama, but South Alabama also played against LSU and Arkansas State. LSU, of course, is wide receiver U right alongside Ohio State. Ohio State probably holds the full title there. He also played against Texas State, who people sleep on like them because they're Texas State and they have done nothing. But they actually have a really good receiving core by virtue of the offense they run. And despite going through that gauntlet, the only time that he had a bad game, like a truly atrocious game, was up against LSU. And even then, he was still holding his own. Only gave up 3 touchdowns on the year, got 2 picks, 5 pass breakups, and allowing only 60% of targets thrown his way to be caught. Again, that's getting into really, really good territory. So just looking at the stats, great pickup. But looking at the film, it's even better because he just has a lot of those technical nuances that a lot of corners don't have, especially as young as he is.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on Fortenberry. He's somebody that I really badly wanted. He's right up there with Maldonado and Moss, I think, as my favorites in the class, along with, I guess, Amos Talalele, who's somebody that I'm really taking a liking to. But this is another guy that Houston, I think, took a long look at. And again, when Houston's looking at someone, particularly on defense, when Willie Fritz has decided that he thinks a player is good, that means the player is good. And Mario Fortenberry, again, don't get hung up on like having one bad day against LSU. Don't get hung up on the fact that he said South Alabama, because you can be a talented guy anywhere. And two, it's impressive no matter what level you're at to start in college as a true freshman. And this was at the G5 level in the Sun Belt. There's a lot of talent in the Sun Belt, and Marion Fortenberry rising to the top as a true freshman. That's just impressive. No fans or buts about it, and I'm very happy with that. It adds some more youth, which already a really young corner room for K-State. Like most of the guys that we're looking at for next year are going to be like true sophomores, redshirt freshmen, redshirt sophomores. Like Donovan McIntosh, Zayshawn Rich, now Fortenberry's there. Justice James is the elder statesman in the room at this point. But
Nigel's still there.
But yeah, in the bowl game, he was playing a little safety as well. So Nigel may just end up being like a hybrid guy that can do a little bit of both. Either that, or we see him going the Colby McAllister route and just becoming a safety. But I don't know. We like to interchange our defensive backs a lot, it seems, which is not a bad thing, really. But Fortenberry, super, super happy with this addition. I am genuinely really pleased with this recruiting win. And I think that still probably some more portal ads to come. But Fortenberry might be the icing on the cake, depending on how the remaining kind of slates go. I'm not really sure how long the portal season is going to go this year, because everything is just going to be different about it with the new roster limits and such. I do not know what to expect in that regard, because like we're going to have those 105 man roster limits for the first time, and that's 105 scholarships. You can do fewer scholarships if you want, but it's going to make things really weird, I think, with the portal and with guys entering at random times. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen there. But no matter what, Fortenberry is going to be near or at the top of this class, I think, for K-State.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's it. It only took us 45 minutes to cover all of the portal commits, and we still have to talk about the Catsketball teams. As always, we are going to start with the women's team because they deserve it. And we're only going to cover their two conference matchups that they've had. The first one was up against Houston at Houston, which was pretty dominant outside of a third quarter where K-State seemingly fell asleep and then immediately woke up to deliver a 23-4 fourth quarter. I will not lie, I was scared during the third quarter. I didn't enjoy that experience very much, but I did enjoy the fourth quarter a lot more. And it's the 1-0 that K-State starts with. What's next? 1-0. This was technically 2-0 because of Cincinnati win that we've covered already. But yeah, this is good win.
Yeah, I agree. I was pretty frustrated with that third quarter, as I imagine they also were. But yeah, anytime you have a 23-4 fourth quarter, that generally is going to work in your favor. So I was pretty happy with how they finished the game. I guess we can kind of just get into the individual performances now. Do you want starters on this one, or do you want me to take starters on this one?
I'll take starters on this one. K-State actually had 3 players hit 15. All 3 of them were starters. The first of which was actually Jalen Glenn, who played 33 minutes, 6 of 9 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, 2 of 2 under free throws, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, and a steal for 15 points. So outside of the lower 3-point number, which that's a theme for this game, didn't shoot very well from three this game. Pretty standard Jalen Glenn performance. Tamira Poindexter, 30 minutes, 5 of 12 from the field, 2 of 8 from three, 3 of 4 on her free throws, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 turnovers, 1 block, and a steal. So again, my biggest concern with Tamira Poindexter this year certainly isn't volume, it's been efficiency. And she just, especially recently, hasn't been the most efficient player, which was sort of her thing coming out of Tulsa. I think she's still getting acclimated to playing in the Big 12, and I think she'll get there just because I think she has the talent to do so. So basically it's vibes. It's only vibes. But the third 15-point scorer was Ioka Lee, of course. 27 minutes, 7 of 9 from the field, 1 of 2 on her free throws, 9 rebounds, 3 fouls, 1 turnover to 4 blocks, and again, 15 points. Houston actually has a big who was able to rival the height of Ioka Lee, which is very rare. So it was kind of a battle down low for a little bit of this game, which we're not really used to seeing that from programs outside of Iowa State with Audie Crooks. But outside of that, the other two starters were Serena Sundell and Zai Walker. Serena had a double-double, 11 points with 11 rebounds, almost had a triple-double, one assist away from a triple-double with 9. 6 turnovers, so that's high, but she was 1 3-point away from stuffing the stat sheet. Unfortunate.
Her play recently has just been she's been at another level as of late.
She's realized she's good. She's beginning to believe.
Yeah, it seems like we've kind of transitioned back to just having her handle the ball more. When we kind of initially seemed like wanted Zai to do that, but Serena's just been so good at distributing that we've just kind of gone back to that.
And speaking of Zai, 23 minutes, 2 of 7 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3, 3 of 4 on her free throws, 4 rebounds, 3 fouls, 2 assists, 3 turnovers, 2 steals, and 7 total points. So pretty balanced in the starting lineup. And the bench production wasn't amazing, but they did what they needed to.
Yeah, pretty quiet day across the board for the entire bench. Terrence Sides led in bench scoring. She played 20 minutes, had 5 points, 2 of 5 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, and then had 4 rebounds, 3 turnovers, and a steal. Gisela Sanchez played 11 minutes. She's still kind of getting back from her broken hand. Played 11 minutes, 1 of 3 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3, and finished with 2 points, 2 rebounds, and assists, and a turnover. And it's going to be pretty similar down the stretch here. Imani Lester, 6 minutes, 2 points, 3 rebounds, a foul. Eliza Maupin played 5 minutes, had 2 points, 1 of 1 from the field, and a rebound. And Kennedy Taylor actually had a bit of a rough day for herself. Didn't score, went 0-3 from the field in 7 minutes, 2 rebounds, and a foul. So not the day that we are normally hoping for from Kennedy Taylor, but she still ended up having a better performance in the following game. But not the best in this Houston game.
Yeah. And this is one of those where it definitely sort of felt like an escape game, especially after the third quarter. But once you look at the stat sheet and get into that fourth quarter, that's sort of where things normalized. And that's not really the story up against Texas Tech with the next one, where K-State, I believe, wire to wire led, and the only quarter that Texas Tech won was the fourth quarter when K-State just kind of shrugged their shoulders and went, yeah, we won after a 28-9 third. So this isn't a bad Texas Tech team. They were 12-3 going into this matchup. So a pretty solid squad. I do think that Tech is probably going to struggle in conference play, but I don't think that's because they're bad. I think that's because the Big 12 is just going – it's a bunch of matchup problems, basically. It's rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, they have a really great player in Bailey Maupin who had 21, but otherwise K-State was able to mostly shut down everybody else. And this is a game that was a little bit closer than it probably should have been throughout the first half, but K-State still felt like kind of controlled throughout most of the game. And then in the third quarter, they just really flipped a switch. It does seem like this team can just at random times elect to just win a quarter by like 20 points. But like they have to like opt into doing that at the beginning. And it seems like they just can't do it the whole game, which is tough, to be that locked in for a whole game. But yeah, they just obliterated Tech in the third quarter of this game. But yeah, there are some really great individual performances in this one as well. We'll begin with the starters. Aoka Lee is back to her old ways of scoring more points than having minutes played. This one, she played 17 minutes at 19 points, 9 of 11 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3, and then added 8 rebounds, 3 fouls, 2 turnovers, a block, and a steal. She was really effective in this game. We went to her a lot early in the game, and then we also went back to her a lot in the third quarter. She was hitting some fairly difficult shots as well at times in this one. Some fadeaway turnaround jumpers. She was hitting a little bit further away from the basket, and she was just really locked in this game and played. I thought really, really well. Serena Sundell. She finished second in scoring, although she wasn't great from the floor. Played 34 minutes, 2 of 8 from the field, but 9 of 10 on her free throws, which is a good sign because she's been a little bit inconsistent on her free throws this year, but solid in this game against Tech, finishing with 13 points and adding 3 rebounds, but did have 11 assists to 4 turnovers, so she has another double-double, then added 2 blocks and a steal in this one. So that's now I think 2 in a row, maybe 3. I can't remember. She did 3. But yeah, she's been phenomenal. And I was calculating at the game what she needs to set the K-State career assists record, which is 800. She was at 657 before this game. So now is at 668. She needs to average, assuming like minimum we get 1 Big 12 tournament game, and we can assume we're going to get a March Madness game as well. She needs to get about 8 a game. But that was also it was 8.4, and that was before she got 11 in this game. So that average goes down a little bit for what she needs. And if she keeps playing the way she is, she'll be able to break that, particularly if we win a few extra games in March Madness and in the Big 12 tournament. But it's also gone from – yeah.
So sorry, for the record, this is her 3rd straight double-double, all with assists and points.
Yeah, so she's been really she's turned it on as of late. It's been great to watch, and hopefully she'll be able to really challenge for that career assist record. It's not something that was really on my radar going into the season, but she's just been so effective. It's going to be a really tough ask, though, because, I mean, like, it is a pretty heavy lift to average 8 assists a game for anybody. So, but I'll be keeping my eye on it. I bet she can at least get close. But that's just something to watch down the stretch of the year. Tamira Poindexter, now we're moving on. She played 20 minutes in this one, so a little bit lower in terms of her minutes. 3 of 9 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, getting 7 points in this one. 1 foul, 1 turnover, a block, and 2 steals. Then Jalen Glenn played 26 minutes, 2 of 6 from the field, 0 of 4 from 3, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, and 2 blocks. So just 4 points for Jalen in this one. Then Zy Walker, only 4 points for her as well. 1 of 3 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3, 2 of 4 on free throws, and then added 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers, and then a whopping 5 steals for Zy Walker.
The Jalen Glenn numbers.
Yeah, Zy Walker's really kind of been taken over in the steals department this year.
Yeah, and maybe if she imagine Zy gets the all defensive team and Jalen never did.
That would really be a shame, man. That I don't know. Maybe they'll give it to Jalen as like kind of a career achievement sort of award. But yeah, I guess we'll see.
But when you get to the bench production, you start with Kennedy Taylor. Only played 13 minutes, but went 5 of 6 from the field for 13 points, 3 of 4 on her free throws, 4 rebounds, 1 foul, 1 assist, and 1 steal. So Kennedy Taylor sort of getting back into her groove. And then Taryn Sides is the other biggie. 22 minutes, 4 of 9 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, 1 of 1 on her free throws, 3 rebounds, 2 fouls, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 steal, 11 points. At this point, it's just a bit. She's just going to have more rebounds than assists. That's just the thing she's going to do now, I guess, which is fine. But then you sort of get into the rest of them, the rest of the players, and that is Eliza Maupin. 14 minutes, 2 of 4 from the field, 2 rebounds, 1 foul, 1 assist, 1 turnover, 1 steal for 4 points. And then Gisela played 18 minutes, 1 of 2 from the field, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover, and 2 points. Amani played 2 minutes, got 2 boards, 1 foul, and an assist, and 2 steals. So Amani and Gisela played a lot of defense that doesn't really show up on the stat sheet, but they still contributed. But the main scoring options were Kennedy and Taryn off the bench.
Yeah, the big thing with Amani is both of her rebounds were offensive rebounds as well. So she was doing a good job crashing the boards on the offensive side of the ball. But yeah, Kennedy Taylor looked way better in this game than she did against Houston. And something I forgot to mention as well was at one point, I can't remember exactly when, but Tamara Poindexter just broke somebody's ankles at one point in this game. It was pretty bad. And it's got a pretty easy layup off of it. I cannot remember when that happened in the game, but it drew a reaction from the crowd.
How was the crowd?
Better than I thought it would be. I was pretty surprised. I would shout out. It was like 4-H day, I think, which was part of it. So there was like a lot of 4-H kids there. But honestly, the crowd was better than I thought it would be. The kind of student section side was pretty full, and the chairback side on the other side of the court, I'd say it was probably like half full. But better than I thought it would be. I think they announced like 6,000. It was probably more like 4 or 5. I think it was probably about 5. But I also do have to gripe, unfortunately, with K-State Athletics. They blocked off the stairs by the ice training facility, which get this, because speaking of ice, and they only had the unlike that ramp to go up.
Oh my god!
And they did not salt it. That was an adventure to get up on that. They did salt it when people left, but on the way in, no, it had not been salted, and that was a critical error, I thought. And what was most frustrating was that like they had like salted like the like steps like directly in front of like that northeast entrance, but like only there, and they just like stopped like once you got to like the incline where that people would be most likely to like slip on. So
great.
Yeah, so that was a little frustrating, a little disappointed in K-State for that, but otherwise pretty well done. They had those disc dogs at halftime, which have been there like every year for like the last like 5 years, I feel like, at this point. But I don't know. So yeah, all things considered, it was better put together than I thought it would be. But yeah, no, the roads were absolutely just atrocious in Manhattan on Saturday. Now we're recording this on Sunday, and it's just been snowing a lot. It's bad.
It's not getting any better, and it's not any better in Topeka either. I mean, Connor can't see. Well, no one can see my window because bright. Apparently, Jesus lives over there. But anyway, we still have to cover the men. The next matchups for the K-State women is a little trip to Utah to play both Utah and BYU. I believe both of them. I think both of them have sort of been victims to the rock paper scissors that has been the Big 12 schedule up to this point. I refuse to not take anyone seriously in the Big 12 anymore. I think it's the men's team that has given me that appreciation. But yeah, so they take a trip to Utah before coming back to Manhattan to face Arizona that next week.
Yeah, which Utah, they are 2-0 in Big 12 play, although one of their wins is Arizona State, who is not very good. And then the other one is Arizona, who could be good, but they're 11-5. Arizona's 11-5. Arizona State's 8-7. So it's kind of a TBD on Utah. BYU has not been good this year. They're 0-3 in Big 12 play, 9-5 overall. But the schedule's kind of a slow start for K-State, honestly, like looking down. But then towards the end of the month, you're going to get Iowa State and Bramlage. And that's going to be on ESPN as well. Not like the Plus, not ESPNU, not ESPN2. It's going to be on ESPN proper, ESPN Prime, if you will. And
it deserves to be.
Yeah, so that's going to be a massive, 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 massive game. And it's a Thursday at 7:30. Not really makeable, I guess, if you live in Kansas City, unless you're feeling like taking a day off on the 31st. But I don't know, if you're in the area, try and make it to that game, because that's gonna be huge. That is a Big 12 title race type of game right there.
Yep, I agree. Now we can talk about the men. I don't want to go in depth about the men, not really. Mostly because of time, but also because they just kind of annoy me.
I don't really feel like it either, so that's fine.
Yeah, they beat Cincinnati, who is ranked 16th. They beat them 70-67 in Bramlage, and then lost to TCU on a last-second shot for like the third or fourth time in a row in Fort Worth. The only thing I really have to say is they care now, but now they're just kind of not very great. Coleman Hawkins, I do want to give Coleman Hawkins his flowers. He's stepped it up massively, and that is really, really good. Yeah. Kind of like Coleman Hawkins now. I was kind of annoyed with him for a while, but he's done really, really well.
Yeah, he put together a double-double against Cincinnati, 20 points, 10 rebounds, and added 4 steals. Then he was not super efficient from the field against TCU, but still to get 11 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. But also David Gasson continues to be really effective. He had 13 and 7 against Cincinnati. And then how about 10 points and 17 rebounds against TCU, 8 offensive rebounds. It's absurd how well we were rebounding the ball against TCU and just not getting second chance points. I mean, I'm genuinely kind of embarrassed about that. We had 18 offensive rebounds in this game against TCU, and we only had 13 second chance points. But TCU had 19 second chance points, and they had like half the offensive rebounds that we had. So this TCU game is one that we let slip away, unfortunately. Like that's a game that we have no business losing, I think, which, most of the games that we've lost this year, we've absolutely deserved to lose because we've just been bad. But no, this game against TCU, we were just bricking open shots constantly.
What did we end up from 3? We
were a little bit more efficient in the second half, but that's not saying much. Yeah, we're 6 of 28.
28.
Yeah, well, it helps us. We only attempted 6 in the second half, and we went 3 of 6.
Oh my God!
The first half, 3 of 22. That is approaching K-State women's basketball versus KU, in whatever year it was, 22 or 21 or something.
I think it was 21 because it was the first year we did the show.
I think you're right. I think you might be right. Well, no, it would have been 22 because it would have been the 21-22 season.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
But all I remember about that game is Laura Mackey hitting the only 3 of the game. For that should raise a larger concern about this men's team. We should not have to ever reference a 1-24 disaster class shooting the ball from the women's team when we're talking about a men's game against TCU. So, yeah, not a fun outcome for the Cats in this one.
This is going to be the extent of our men's coverage until they improve. Anyway, you have any last notes?
I'm glad that they beat Cincinnati. It was nice to get it because I truly was at the point where I didn't think we'd win a game the rest of the year, and they went out and immediately won a game.
Yep.
And so it would be really funny if that was the only game they won the rest of the year, just to prove everybody wrong and lose every game. But
just to elaborate, guys,
I have a feeling this men's team is going to just be a thorn in the side of a lot of really good basketball teams, particularly when they're playing in Manhattan. I think we're going to get some crazy ranked wins this year, and we're probably still going to finish below 500 because I just don't think we're going to I just don't think we're going to get as energized to play like Oklahoma State at Gallagher-Iba. This team just needs they have to play teams with numbers next to their names for them to care. And it's great to get ranked wins, but you also have to win the unranked ones as well, because those do actually go on the record as well, unfortunately. And I know it's a shocking concept, but yeah, so that's where I'm at the men's team, and that's why we're covering them last, because they make us the most sad. But Backcats are going to be starting up in a month and a half from now, which is crazy to say, because it feels like just pretty recently we were talking about their super regionals. And then the women's team. Keep in touch with the women's team because they are 15-1 and should probably be a top 10 team. They aren't for some reason, but this is a huge year for the women's team.
You and I had the theory that, we came up with the theory years ago that the people who do the AP poll in the women's basketball don't actually watch the games, because their only loss is to Duke, who's 7.
Yeah, I think so. And that was just a weirdly off game as well for K-State. But yeah, otherwise they've just been holding opponents at arm's length. They've won all their conference games by 20, and they've been on cruise control for not insignificant portions of all of those games, and just obliterated pretty much everybody in non-conference with the lone exception of Duke. And they're going to be legit this year. They already are legit. So take some time and watch them.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats, or you can email us at aggievillealleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Baltzor, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store found in our podcast and Twitter bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.